What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to rank every fragment in Destiny, and turns out there's 81 of them. I broke down what every fragment does in some videos already, so if you want to see more in-depth info, go check that out. But yeah, I just thought it would be fun to do a ranking list and see how they kind of all stack up. And like I said, there's a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. So the first one is Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. So there is a 10-second cooldown on this, but on Arc being you're pretty much amplified all the time. So you can actually get a lot of mileage out of this, and then orbs obviously give you armor charge, they can give you ability energy, they give you super energy, they can do a lot for you. So on Arc specifically, I'm going to give that one an A tier. It's pretty good on Arc. Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your Arc special weapon final blows create a blinding explosion. So blinding is very, very strong. Super good verb. And then if you're running, well, Forbearance usually just clears stuff out. But again, it depends on the content. So if you're running like a Forbearance or Indebted Kindness, this can actually go very far. So if you do have a good Arc special weapon, this is very good. But obviously, it pigeonholes your build a little bit because you have to run an Arc special weapon to get anything out of it. But if you are running that, then I would say this is an A tier one to run because the effect is very, very strong. Spark of Brilliance. Defeating a blinded target with precision damage creates a blinding explosion. Super dumb. Yeah, they have to be blinded already, and then you have to get a precision kill to create another blinding explosion. Like, just even getting the footage for this one was annoying. It's not easy to use. D tier for sure. Like I said, blinding is good, but that one is just, it's way too specific. Not very user friendly. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace. So ionic traces are very, very good. And again, if you're running something, say you were running Thunderlord and just chewing through enemies, then this one can be very, very strong, and ionic traces are really strong. So another one in A tier. So Arc is off to a good start. Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. So this is really good on like Assassin's Cowl or Liar's Handshake Hunter. But it is very build specific. So unless you're running one of those two things, I don't think it's that strong overall. It has good upside, but yeah, you also have to get meleeed by an enemy, which means you're kind of into the fray. And yeah, it doesn't activate all that often. So its effect is strong, but you don't have the highest uptime on it. So we'll just go B tier because it does have a high ceiling. After sprinting for a short time, your class ability energy or regeneration is increased. So I'm just going to look at this one. So this gives you 150% of your base class ability regen rate. And it's recovery on Warlock, but it's mobility on Hunter and resilience on Titan. Overall, I don't think it's that useful. We're just going to go C tier. There's a lot better out there. Spark of Frequency. Melee hits greatly increase your reload speed for a short duration. So that could be nice on a melee-based build, but again, it's like, how much is the reload speed? Let's see. 0.8x duration multiplier. So it's nice, but yeah, you're not going to see a lot of uptime on it, and there's way better ones to run. Spark of Haste. You have greatly increased resilience, recovery, and mobility while sprinting. So this one is plus 20 to your mobility, resil, and recovery. So it's just plus 20. It's not like a percentage modifier like Focus was. So for that reason, it's actually even weaker. I don't think this one's very good at all. Like plus 20 isn't that much. And you have to be sprinting, and you can't sprint into walls or anything. So yeah, we're going D tier there. Spark of Instinct. While critically wounded, taking damage emits a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets. So you have to be critically wounded, and then you also have to be surrounded by enemies, and then it just jolts them. If this was jolt and blind, it would be good because then it could help you like survive and get out of a sticky situation. But just jolting, nah, that ain't it. Honestly, I was gonna go C, but honestly D. I just don't think it's that good. Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. So you can jolt targets, especially with like Volt Shot. This would be very, very good. And then, yeah, oftentimes you're built around jolting on Arc. So to be able to create an ionic trace on a jolted target is pretty nice. And ionic traces are good. A or B? It really depends how much you're built into Jolt. We're going to go B. Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades, lightning, pulse, and storm have extended duration. I really like this one, and it's really good on pulse grenades. Well, it's good on all of them, but it's especially good on pulse because they hit pretty hard. I'm going to say A tier for this one. It's really good to run. One of my favorites. Spark of Momentum. Sliding over ammo bricks reloads your equipped weapon and grants a small amount of melee energy. So this is kind of like Inertia Override, but without the damage boost. 20% melee energy when you slide over a special and 50% when you slide over power. But like, how often are you doing that? C or D? Sliding over ammo bricks. I mean, the reload. We'll give it C. We'll be generous. Spark of Recharge. While critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerates more quickly. This is actually really, really good. It's a 400% additional base regenerate to your grenade and melee, which is extremely strong. Yes, you have to be critically wounded, but it's a very strong effect. Very good fragment. Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This one is, I think, 25%. Yeah, 25% damage resist. So this is very, very good, especially on like a Vesper Warlock or Point Contact Cannon Brace Titan and Assassin's Cowl Hunter. I mean, DR is very, very strong. We're going to go A tier. Spark of Shock. Your arc grenade jolts targets. I kind of see arc as like the ability spam class, especially like, yeah, pulse grenades are really good. Storm grenades with Touch of Thunder used to be really, really good. But yeah, Jolt is just such a strong effect for like ad clear and stuff. So I'm actually going to put that one in S tier. It's a great fragment. And then Spark of Volts. Finishers make you amplified. Becoming amplified on Arc is extremely easy. So do not waste a fragment slot on this. So that's going D. So some fairly good fragments for Arc. On to Solar. We have Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch stacks to targets. So again, depending what you're running, this can be excellent. But like Incinerator Snap, it makes it ignite much easier. It's extremely good with Polaris Lance. Even outside of like this season, it increases the total Scorch stacks, which allows you to like cause an ignition in 2 perfect fifths instead of 3, which is very valuable. 1k voices, you can get ignitions. Yeah, this is S tier. You're usually kind of trying to scorch enemies typically on Solar. So yeah, it pretty much, it buffs a lot of builds. Ember of Beams. Your Solar super projectiles have stronger target acquisition. I mean, yeah, it helps you hit Daybreak projectiles, I guess. I'm just thinking C or D. We'll give it C. Like, it gives plus 10 intellect, and it does make using the super a little easier, but there's definitely better ones. Ember of Benevolence. I'm just going to get the numbers. Yeah, 400% additional base grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration rate for 6 seconds. You do lose 10 discipline. But yeah, applying Restoration, Cure, Radiant to allies gives you those increased regens. This thing is extremely strong, especially if you're running like healing grenades and Ember of Torches. Like if you're built around this, you're going to have your abilities up a ton. Yeah, you can really build into it. I'm giving it S tier. Like honestly, it's a great fragment. If you haven't used it, check it out. It's really good. Ember Blistering. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy. So you have to get an ignition first of all, and then it just gives you a chunk of grenade energy based on the tier of the combatant you killed. We're going to go C tier because there are a lot better, but when you get an ignition, you are typically killing a lot of enemies. So if you like threw a grenade out, got an ignition, you'll get your grenade rate back. So the effect it has is pretty strong, but I mean, you got to get an ignition to do it. So this season that's easy, but it's not always that easy. Ember of Char, your solar ignition spreads scorch to affected targets. This can be nice. It's just good for even more AoE if you don't get cleanups with the ignition. We'll give it B tier. Ember of Combustion, final blows with solar super causes targets to ignite and creates a fire sprite. So it's tied to your super, so these ones won't have a huge amount of uptime, but there is really good interaction with this on Well of Radiance if you're using solar weapons. Then you can make like a ton of ignitions, so it's really good there. But overall, I mean, there's better ones. We'll give it B, just because it is pretty strong with Well. Ember of Empyrean, that's an S tier for sure. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of Resto and Radiant. These are two of the strongest verbs, and you can just extend it pretty much permanently with Ember of Empyrean. -10 to resilience, well worth the minus. Yeah, that's a no-brainer S tier. It's probably the best fragment in the game, to be honest. Ember of Eruption, your solar ignitions have increased area of effect. Again, this is very noticeable on like if you're built around ignitions, so I'm going to give it a B. Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain resto, and picking up a fire sprite grants restoration, and you get +10 to resilience. The fact that you can get restoration just from a fire sprite, again, I just said resto is like one of the best verbs in the game, so we're actually going to give that one A tier. It's pretty strong. Ember of Resolve, solar grenade, final blows cure you. So it's only one stack of cure according to the compendium, which is not great. We're just going to give that one C tier. Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. So this one is cracked this season because of the artifact and how easy it is to apply scorch, but with +10 recovery and creating fire sprites, that's all really good. Like on Pyrogales, I absolutely love this fragment. So I'm going to give it an A tier, but I might be a bit biased just because I love it for Pyrogale. Ember of Singeing, your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. So that's a 300% additional class ability regenerate, which is really strong. It's good for like hunter dodges, and you can do some cool stuff with Foe Tracer with it. It's really nice for Phoenix Dive Warlock, I find. Yeah, it is very good. I think it's only B tier though, but it is a pretty strong effect. Close to A tier. Ember of Solace, Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. So this is just a kind of like an ease of use or quality of life fragment. So it just gives you more forgiveness, which can be good if you're, struggling to get your Ember of Empyrean procs going on like a Sunbracers build. So it is good. We'll just put it in B tier. It can be good, but it's not totally needed. Ember of Tempering, solar weapon final blows grant you and your allies increased recovery for a short duration, and then you get increased AE, and while it's active, solar weapon final blows create a fire sprite. So the fire sprite part is nice. Let me just see. Yeah, so at ×3 you get 30 more recovery, and then AE is like useless in PvE. So first D tier for solar, in my opinion. And then right back to the S tier with Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. You only have to hit an enemy, you don't even have to get a kill, and radiant is a 25% damage buff. Yes, you lose 10 to discipline, but that is well worth it. That's an easy S tier. Wonderful fragment, super strong. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. So where I liked it on Arc, because you're always amplified, it's much harder to make ignitions this season, notwithstanding, of course, but typically it's tougher to make ignitions. So, and then you only get one orb of power, and lots of times you're kind of away from where the ignition is. So I'm going to give this one a C tier, just because you're not going to be able to do it near as much as the one on Arc. Stasis now, Whisper of Bonds. Defeating frozen targets generates an orb of power. So we'll put this one between those two because you can freeze things a lot more often. And yeah, orbs of power are nice. And it can be good in certain builds like Osmiomancy Stasis Lock. you don't really make a ton of orbs with that build, so this would alleviate that. And all these do have that 10-second cooldown. Like if this ignition one had no cooldown, an ignition, you'd kill a ton of enemies and you could probably make like 20 orbs. But because of that cooldown, yeah, it holds it back. Sorry, just taking a drink of water. Whisper of Chains. While you are near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets. So this one, it's quite a bit. 40% DR, which is very, very strong. There was this guy Selfu back in the day, and he would rock strongholds and like put down stasis crystals and stuff. He was a master at it. You know, DR, it's so strong. Fuck it. Let's give it S tier. It's a very good fragment, and on stasis there is no like way to get your health back, like with Resto or Devour or something. So it's even better. It's great for survivability. Whisper of Conduction. This is just a quality of life one. Shards track to your nearest position. Plus 10 Rezo, plus 10 Intellect. It's nice for the stat bumps, but you can just go pick up your things. It's very nice for quality of life. I'm not denying that. Like I've ran it on builds, but it's not that strong realistically. Whisper of Durance. Slows from your abilities last longer. For those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. So this is really nice on Osmiomancy Warlock or Renewal Grasps Hunter. We're going to give it A tier. It's a very good fragment. Definitely almost like a must run on those two builds. Whisper of Fissures. Increase the damage and size of the bursts of stasis crystals when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. So this just helps even more AoE ad clear. And then this season it's even stronger because of the artifact mods. The damage actually could get a buff. It's not a ton more damage, but the AoE is nice. And if you're built around making crystals, then you probably want to run this. I'm going to give it A tier, but I do think it still needs a damage bump. Whisper of Fractures. Your melee energy recharges faster when you are near 2 or more targets. So let's see. Yeah, it's 5% per second, which is actually really good. But stasis melees in general aren't that strong. So we're going to give it C tier. Whisper of Hedrons. So this does a lot. So you can read it here, but I'm going to give you the compendium info. Plus 60 to mobility, resilience, recovery, plus 30 stability, plus 15 aim assist, and plus 20 AE. So if you're freezing lots of people in Crucible, this thing is nasty. But do you really need stability, AE, and aim assist in general PvE play? I don't really think so. So it does provide a lot of benefits, but it used to be a damage bonus, which was awesome. But yeah, overall, I think I'm just going to go B tier. Just because this is a PvE ranking list, obviously, and yeah. It's not that strong in PvE. Whisper of Hunger. Increase the melee energy gained from picking up stasis shards. So this one, you go from 10% to 17.5% for a small shard and 50% to 75% for a large. It's extremely noticeable when you run this. Like you get minus 20 strength and it's well worth it. But again, stasis melees are not that good. So I'm going to give it B tier. But if we got some better stasis melees in the final shape, watch out, because this thing gives you tons of melee. Whisper of Impetus. Damaging targets with a stasis melee reloads your stowed weapons and grants you a temporary boost to weapon ready speed. So this also increases your equipped weapon as well. It doesn't say that. And it gives plus 10 to resilience. This is really nice in like damage rotations and stuff. And I just love weapon ready speed, like handling. So I'm going to give it A tier because there is a lot of upside on that one. Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. So you can get up to 50% if you kill a boss. And it's only 9% on like red bars. And then your class ability, like that's nice on a Warlock, but not so much needed on the other two in my opinion. I'm going to give that one a C tier. Whisper of Rending is really good. Primary ammo weapons do increased damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. This is extremely noticeable. So if you're built around making crystals and stuff, you absolutely want to run this. And on the stasis exotic bow in particular, it's very, very strong and noticeable because it stacks with like the intrinsic on that weapon. So I think just out of S tier. Like, it is very strong. Next is Whisper of Rhyme. Collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield, which falls off after 10 seconds. Collecting additional shards adds to the overshield and refreshes the timer. So this could get changed in the final shape. I'm making this before any TWIDs have come out, kind of saying what's coming with like frost armor and stuff. But as it stands right now, it doesn't give a lot because people could abuse this in PvP. So, and it's just an overshield. I'm just going to give it C tier. It used to be stronger. It needs a buff for PvE. Oh, crap. All right. All my crap kind of closed down. So we're back with Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional crystals increases the duration of this benefit. This is honestly S tier. You get a 500% increase to your base ability regen rate. And it's pretty easy to make crystals on like certain builds. So yeah, that one is an S tier. It's excellent. Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. It's 5% grenade energy. And then when you're at critical health, it doubles to 10%. So very strong, but ideally you're not taking much damage, but the effect it provides is very strong. So we're going to go with A tier. So look at that. Stasis, no D tier ones. I guess you could argue that maybe some are, but yeah, pretty good. Thread of Ascent. Activating your grenade ability reloads your equipped weapon and grants a bonus to AE and handling for a short duration. So it is 40 more handling, 40 reload speed, and a 0.925x duration multiplier, and 30 AE for 15 seconds. That's all very strong, and it is good in damage rotations, and I personally hate reloading, so it's funny, I don't run this one that much because there's other ones that I like to run on my Strand builds, but if you're in like a damage rotation especially, this one is very, very good. Thread of Binding. Super final blows emit a suspending burst from the target. I love this one, and it gives 10 resilience. I love it on Hunter, and it's also very, very good on Titan, but it's especially good on Hunter. So I'm going to give that one A tier as well. It's a great fragment. Thread of Continuity. Suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. So it's about 50% longer, and yeah, all these are very good. Like if you're built around suspend, you absolutely want to have this, but yeah, to have longer unravel and sever is really nice. So another A tier. Strand's off to a hot start. Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel farther and deal more damage. So again, for the effect it provides, it's 33% more. So it's pretty much a must run if you're built around threadlings. So again, I'm going to go A tier. That's awesome. Thread of Finality. Finisher final blows create threadlings, and then depending on the tier, you'll make more threadlings, but with how many good other Strand fragments there are, I don't think this one is worth running. I'm actually going to go D tier. Like, it's really not that useful, in my opinion. Thread of Fury. Damaging targets with a tangle grants melee energy. This one is honestly S tier because of how strong it is. You get like crazy amounts of strength back when you hit enemy. Like if you hit multiple enemies with your tangle, you can get like a full charge back. It's awesome. Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. This one used to be pretty much broken, but they did tone down how good it is. But it is still very strong. Like I still run it a lot, but with it being toned down, we're just going to put it in B tier. But it is still well worth running. Landing rapid precision hits emits a severing burst from the target. So that's pretty nice. Having an easy way to sever enemies is always nice because sever is a pretty strong verb. We're going to go B tier. And actually, I'm just going to look. Oh, okay. Yeah, like a slug shotgun, it would take 2. SMGs, it's 10%. So you'd have to land like 10 crits, which isn't that hard. Okay, we'll keep it in B. Defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy. This one is quite nice. So if like one red bar was suspended, you'd get 10%. But if you killed like a mini boss or a champion, it'd be like 30%. So it's a pretty strong effect. We're going to go with B on that one as well. Threat of propagation. Powered melee final blows grant your Strand weapons unraveling rounds. Unraveling rounds are nice, but other than like Strand Titan, you're not always getting like a ton of powered melee final blows. So I'm going to put that one in C tier. It's a nice effect, but there's better on Strand for sure. Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create a threadling. That one's kind of like hatchling. You have to get like, if you got 3 red bar kills, it's going to make a threadling. If you killed a champion with a Strand weapon, it's automatically going to create one. It's a 100% chance. So it's good for creating threadlings and fun in a threadling like centric build. But overall, it's not that strong. We're going to go with C tier. But if you are built around it, you can make like a fair amount of threadlings, but it's not the strongest. While you have Woven Mail, weapon final blows create a tangle. This one's really nice. Tangles have lots of use. So we're just going to go B. Thread of Warding. Sorry. Picking up an orb of power grants Woven Mail. So Woven Mail is very strong, and there's certain builds where you can make a lot of orbs. -10 to resilience. Yeah, I mean, Woven Mail is really strong, so this is strong on like certain stuff, but it's definitely not required on like every build. But we will give it A tier just because of how good Woven Mail is and how often it can be like procced. Defeating suspended targets creates an orb of power, so we've got these on every class. For this one, if you're not built around suspend, you're getting no use out of it. And then there is that 10-second cooldown. We're going to give it a C on Strand. So Strand pretty even across the board, to be honest. And now we're on to the last one, which is Void, Echo of Cessation. Finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby combatants to become volatile. Defeating volatile targets creates a void breach, and void breaches are nice. They give class ability energy. But unless you're getting a bunch of finishers, you're not going to see a lot of use out of this one, so I'm going to give it a C. Anything that's kind of like finisher-centric, I don't know. I don't really love, as you can kind of tell from this list. Echo of Dilation. While crouched, you sneak faster and gain enhanced radar resolution. The 10 mobility and 10 intellect is super nice, especially in PvP. But this does not do a lot for you in PvE. So it's nice for the stat bumps, but we'll give it C. Echo of Domineering. After suppressing a target, you gain greatly increased mobility for a short duration, and your equipped weapon is reloaded from reserves. Defeating suppressed targets creates a void breach. So let's see. Suppressing an enemy, it gets you 30 more mobility and a 4% movement speed bonus for 10 seconds and refills the readied weapon. Plus 10 to discipline after suppressing a target. You're not often suppressing in very many builds. So for that reason, I'm going to go C. It's a fairly good effect, but suppress is probably the one you get the least mileage out of on Void. Echo of Exchange, melee final blows grant grenade energy. That can go up to 25% on mini bosses, and it's 7.5% on like red bars. So yeah, it's decent. Sucks on Warlock because Warlock melees suck. Echo of Expulsion, void ability final blows cause targets to explode. I really like this one. We're going to put that one in A tier actually. That extra explosion is really, really nice, especially depending on your build. Defeating weakened targets creates an orb of power and creates a void breach. So this one's pretty nice because you also get the void breach, and the way I play Void, and probably most people, you're usually weakening targets. So much like the amplified one, I think that one can sneak into A tier, especially depending on your build. Defeating targets with grenades grants volatile rounds to your weapons. Volatile rounds is really good. It's easy to get grenade kills on Void, in my opinion. So obviously, if you're not running Void weapons, it's not good. But if you are, volatile rounds is awesome. So we're going to go A there. Melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies, plus 10 resilience. This is awesome in PvP, obviously. And it's pretty nice in PvE as well. The plus 10 resil, we're going to give that one a B tier. Definitely helps with survivability. Finisher final blows grant invisibility. So this is the one finisher one where I actually think it is very useful, especially in harder PvE content. Especially on a hunter as well, because they're just always built around invis. So I'm just trying to think between A and B. Finisher final blows. We'll just go B. But it is probably the best like finisher fragment out there. Echo of Persistence. Void buffs applied to you have increased duration. This one is very good. The extension is quite noticeable, especially on like Invis Hunter. So yeah, we're going to go A. That is a pretty good one. Echo of Provision. Damaging targets with grenades grants melee energy. Let's look it up. So 3% melee energy from Scatter, Spike, Void Wall, and Vortex, and 8% from Axion, Handheld Supernova, Magnetic, and Suppressor. Nothing too amazing there. I mean, it's not bad. We'll keep it in C. Echo of Remnants. Your lingering grenade effects from these type of grenades have increased duration. I love this on Controverse Hold, but overall it's pretty good. Yeah, obviously depends what you're running. It's like a must run on Controverse. Can't decide between A and B. We'll just go B. Final blows when surrounded by combatants grant super energy. So how much? Doesn't really say on the compendium. But supers are nice. We'll just put that one solidly in B tier. Echo of Starvation. Picking up a Void Breach or an Orb of Power grants Devour. That's very, very strong. It gives every class access to Devour, which is amazing. And it can be procced from a Void Breach as well. That's probably S tier. Like, Devour is so good. Actually, this next one's S tier as well. Echo of Undermining. Weaken is very, very strong, and it's really good in the right builds. And the last fragment, Echo of Vigilance. Defeating a target while your shields are depleted grants you a temporary Void Overshield. So this is really nice in PvP. PvE, just solid B tier. Just helps for survivability. So yeah, that's what the list looks like. A lot in A tier. The most in A tier, actually. And then the second most in B tier. Third most in C tier. And then next to last most in S tier. And then the least in D, which is good. So this tells me that Bungie has things fairly balanced. And then Solar, 4 in the S tier. That's crazy. And then Arc only had 1, as did Strand. So yeah. And just looking, no Void and no Stasis in the D tier. So that's pretty good. Let me know what you thought down below. I think I ranked them pretty well. I've played with all of them. I have good experience with them. So yeah, I think it was a pretty fair list and pretty fun to make. So if you're still watching, thanks for listening to me ramble. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.